Hello, the story I have for you today is called Raising Dragons. It's by Jerdine Nolan and illustrated by Elise Primavera. Look, she's feeding the dragon. Oh, I wonder what this story will be about. Look, here's a map, and this says Dragon Island. See how it's kind of shaped like a dragon? What do you think lives there? Oh, and look. What do you think that is there? See the volcano and then this landing in the water? Pa didn't know a thing about raising dragons. He raised corn and peas and barley and wheat. He raised sheep and cows and pigs and chicken. He raised just about everything we needed for life on our farm, but he didn't know a thing about raising dragons. Ma didn't know about dragons either. She made a very nice home for us, but when it came to dragons, she didn't even know what they wanted for dessert. Now me, I knew everything about dragons, and I knew they were real. At first, Pa thought the notion of dragons on a farm was just plain foolishness. I'm not too particular about fanciful critters, and I don't have any time for make-believe, he told me one day. So when Pa said he didn't want to talk anymore, I knew I'd better keep my opinions to myself. I did my chores with my thoughts in my head at one end of the barn, while Pa worked on the other end with his thoughts. There she is. There's her farm, her house. What do you see in the sky there? I remember the day my life with dragons began. I was out for my Sunday before supper walk. Near Miller's Cave, I came across something that looked like a big rock, but it was too round and too smooth and not hard enough to be a rock. Carefully, I rolled it into the cave and went to fetch Pa. What do you think it is, Pa? An egg. A big egg was all he said. Now you stay away from that thing, daughter. No telling what'll come out of it. I couldn't tell if Pa was more scared than worried. You just stay away, you hear me, he said, pointing his finger. What do you think is in that egg? Look at how Pa's feeling. Look at how she's feeling. I always minded my parents, never had a reason not to, and I tried to mind Pa now, but I could not stay away. Day after day, I'd go to Miller's Cave to wait and watch and wonder, what is coming out of that egg? One night, I couldn't sleep. I got out of my bed and climbed out of my window onto the perch Pa had made for me in the oak tree. But a loud noise broke the stillness of the night. Crack! It was louder than 100 firecrackers on the 4th of July. Crack! I heard it again, this time louder than before. It was coming from Miller's Cave. And at the first hint of dawn, I headed toward that sound. There in the corner of the cave where I'd left it was the egg. And pushing its way out, like I'd seen so many baby chicks do, was a tiny dragon poking through that shell with its snout. It was love at first sight. Hey there, little fella, welcome to the world, I sang, soft and low. As I stroked his nose, a sweet little purring whimper came from him. As I touched skin to scale, I knew I was his girl and he was my dragon. I named him Hank. Look at Hank. Uh-oh, what will her parents do? Hank was just a joy to have around. He was a fire-breathing dragon, and he made sure he kept his temper whenever I was near. Pa wouldn't have seen the sense or the use of having a dragon around to eat you out of house and home. Thankfully, Hank preferred fish, frogs, eels, and insects to beef, lamb, chicken, and pork, and he did have a big appetite. Ma never wanted to know about Hank. Whenever I wanted to talk about him, she'd cover her ears and sing. She said that having a dragon around had to be worse than having a field full of critters. But it wasn't. But she is feeding him. Look. They're still just doing their farm jobs. Do you think they like Hank so far? Ma and Pa taught me about caring for living creatures from the day I was born. They taught me about raising lots of things, but they never imagined I would someday care for a critter most folks didn't even believe existed. It did take a little time, but whether they liked it or not, Hank was a part of our lives. Look, she's reading a bedtime story to him. And look, all the other animals are listening too. She's been taking care of all the farm animals for a long time, so she's great at taking care of things. He was an awesome thing, growing to be as big as the barn from tail to snout. Hank was very clumsy when his wings grew in. But once he learned how to use them, we'd go flying, mostly at night. Up until then, I had been afraid of the dark. The shadows and muffled noises and the complete quiet stillness always seemed to be waiting and watching me. I had seen our farm from up in my tree perch, but Hank showed me my world from on high, the way a cloud or a bird or a star just might be seeing me. Up there, I saw things for what they were. It was just grand. Pa was the first one to notice what he called a strangeness happening around our farm. One morning with Samson, our mule hitched for work, Pa set out to plow the fields. But all the work had been done. The ground was turned over and the seeds had been sown. Pa was plumb flabbergasted. The horse hitched up to the plow, and the plow is what makes these lines. But somebody already did it. Who do you think did that? Hank and I tended the crops, too. We pulled weeds and kept varmints away, and Hank even got me to school before the first bell. Even after all the good he'd done, Ma didn't want any part of Hank. But when a hot spell hit, her tomatoes began to dry out. Hank hovered above them, fanning away the heat. He saved just about every last one of them. Ma didn't admit it, but she felt beholden to Hank. She began fixing fancy gourmet meals just for him. Eel pot pies, frog leg pudding, and a fish and insect stew that Hank just loved. He saved her tomatoes, so she's being really nice and giving him some special food. We think she likes him? Day by day, Hank was getting bigger. Ma was uneasy about Hank's fire-breathing breath. Pa paced with worry about all the corn Hank and I planted. So Hank did do the planting. There was corn growing everywhere. Ma cooked as much of it as she could, but there was just too much. Just when it seemed like the corn would swallow up our farm, Hank grabbed Pa's shovel and dug a wide trench around the cornfield. Then he blew on it with his hot breath. What in tarnation? Pa screamed. Ma ran out of the house carrying a bucket of water. But it was too late. The whole field was ablaze. We couldn't believe our ears. Pop, 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 pop. Or our eyes. Hank was making popcorn. It took an entire week to salt and bag it. We sold it all at a profit. It was the first dragon-popped popcorn anyone had ever seen or tasted, and it was real good. So look, they planted too much corn, but they figured out a way to save it and to use it. Look at all that. When Ma harvested her tomatoes, Nancy Akins bought some. She claimed they had medicinal value. She said they cured her gout. Pretty soon, folks wanted dragon-grown food like they wanted medicine or magic cures. But there was nothing medicinal or magical about it. It was just Hank. The crowd's attention decided his fate. One evening, Ma and I were sitting in front of our pot-bellied stove. She was shelling peas while I read Murdoch's Adventure Atlas of the Known and Unknown World, a book I'd gotten from the library this morning. In that instant, I realized what I needed to do. What do you think she's going to do? Showing him something in the book. Come morning, Hank and I set out for the dragon-shaped landmass floating in the middle of the ocean. Oh, it's Dragon Island. What are they going to do on Dragon Island? There were dragons everywhere. They put us up in their best hotel, invited us to eat in their best restaurants. Hank felt right at home. When I saw Hank playing run and fly and chase, I knew he'd found the perfect place to be. All in all, it was a great vacation. Hank's around other dragons. But at the end, it got real hard. I had to say farewell to Hank, at least for now. Normally, I don't get mushy at departing, but when Hank turned to me and called me Cupcake, I boo-hooed a heap. Just as I was about to board my plane, Hank stood there on the runway, trying to hide the wheelbarrow behind his back. His toothy grin lit up that cloudy day. She letting him stay there because she knows that he's happy, even though it's hard. What do you think? Says the wheelbarrow was full of. What's in the wheelbarrow? What do you think Hank is going to give her? Rocks? Ma squealed in puzzlement. It ain't rocks, Mother, they're eggs. Dragon eggs, I exclaimed. Pa beamed right proud. Each egg looked different from the rest. One glowed, one glistened, another one flickered, and one even sparkled. I stood admiring the lot of them. Looking at these eggs, I thought about my Hank. For now, he was out there somewhere in the world. I knew I'd see him again. Wondering when was the only thing fixed in my mind. But in the meantime, I knew what I had to do. The same way Pa knew farming was in his blood, I knew that raising dragons was in mine. She's going to raise all the dragons. There are some things you just know. And look, and Hank came back to visit. I love that story. Because sometimes you just know that you're good at things. Did you like this? Maybe you can draw a picture of your own dragon baby, what it would look like if you found a dragon egg. I liked reading this to you. I'll see you later.